All right, guys, how's it going today? We're out here fishing with EBA, trying to get you guys on more fish. Today, we're going to talk all about one place. We're going to talk about Folsom Lake. Why? Because Folsom Lake really gets hit around March, April, and May, and then everybody backs off and they say, God, I'm struggling. I'm having a tough time. So we're making this video talking about how to fish Folsom Lake in Folsom, California. But we're also going to break down this lake seasonally. So we're going to tell you what to throw, when to throw it, how you might want to target certain areas or structure or not structure or open water or random points or secondary points, main points. We're going to get into it. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about Folsom Lake. This is going to help you right away catch more fish, period. Unless you've already spent, long days, 50, 100 days a year, hundreds and hundreds of days in the last couple of years, and just consistently put in time on that lake. This is really going to help you. And even if you've done that already, this is still going to help you. So it's going to help everybody along the board, across the board. What we're looking at today is, let's talk about really quick, because we're in summer, so let's focus on summertime fishing at Folsom Lake. In the spring, it's pretty obvious. You can get away with a lot of stuff, and a lot of people do get away with a lot of stuff. They drop shot, they wacky rig Senkos and other types of things, and they might throw a jerk bait, they might not. They might throw a swim bait, they might not. They're going to throw some poppers from time to time, some walk the dog baits. They're going to throw all the average standard bass tackle that will catch bass anywhere you go in the state or the country during that time of year. So that's spring, and we'll talk a little bit more about spring and things you can do to stand out, separate, and catch more bigger fish than everybody else. So it's pretty simple. Summertime is a big flip. Instead of the fish going shallow, they're moving offshore. They're schooling up instead of breaking down, and really covering the shoreline, and every bass likes about 15 feet between each bed. So each bass at the very least has a 15 foot circle surrounding him or so, where they're gonna make a bed, a male, a female, pull up, etc., etc. But here's the deal: after spring is gone, these fish stack up again, they school up, and they go offshore, or they go offshore. And generally what they like to do offshore is they like to hold on rock piles. They like to hold on or off of an island, off a drop, steep point that drops, a main point that drops really fast, and they might be suspended out off that 80, 100, 150 feet. They're randomly going to position themselves in areas where there's a lot of food coming by and there's a lot of traffic. And I don't mean boat traffic. I'm talking life, aquatic life, fish, insects, all that good stuff, that kind of life. So, when you get into this summer months of fishing, you're going to want to start focusing on suspended fish. And if you're not working suspended fish, you need to be working fish on the bottom that are relating to the bottom. Summer's kind of like winter. As you get deeper and deeper, like right now we're at the dog days, they're going to get tight to the bottom. Yeah, they might be schooled up, sure, but there's going to be a lot of fish on the bottom, hugging the bottom, because that's where the water temp, for certain fish, the coolest water temp in the warmest of conditions is going to be down at the bottom. And then there's other fish that are just suspended because they're bait fish in that lake, and their forage is suspended as well, and they need to move around. A lot of times these schooled up fish are going to be smaller in the class, so they're going to be smaller juvenile fish, or just under 5 pounds in general. And then when you get those bigger independent fish that will lurk and lark on the bottom in the depth, and they will hug the bottom, and sometimes it's really interesting. So one of the things you're going to be looking for is water. Anything coming in, water coming in is going to just help you catch fish. If you can find incoming water, obviously when you're talking the American River and you're talking Folsom Lake, there's always water. But where does that water, right? Where does the water that comes in hit the right water temp? So the water that's coming in is real cold. It's coming from the mountains, and then there's a point as you go into Folsom Lake where that water temperature gets right. Okay, it's not too cold, it's not too warm. So if you go up to many of those launch ramps, it's crappy fishing for the most part, and that water temperature warms up a lot better. There's no real structure on the bottom, it's featureless. And then if you go on the opposite spectrum of the lake, where all that water's coming in, you know, it's a lot colder. And then in the middle, that's really where those bass thrive. So if you kind of cut the lake into thirds, that is Folsom Lake, and you focus on the center portion of the lake, that's where the predominant population of bass, like that's where they are. They lie in that mid column, and it has a lot to do with the structure, has a lot to do with where the food is, it has a lot to do with the water temps, it has a lot to do with everything. And so focus on that 1/3 of the lake, and you're already going to be on the fish more than you would be, say, on that in the other columns. So just imagine you're cutting the lake into a third. There's the west side, the center, and the east side of the lake. Focus on the center portion of that lake on the map, and you're going to catch more fish. I'm going to tell you guys what's really going on, and I'm going to break it down. So a lot of times everybody goes, hey, it's bass fishing. And yeah, it is bass fishing, but it's summertime. We've got a lot of aquatic insects. We've got dragonflies. We've got all these different bug hatches that are going simultaneously week in, week out, and so on until it's over. So these fish, a lot of these fish are keyed in, and they're focused on what's relatively happening right now. So they're focused on a lot of aquatic insects and bugs and dragonflies and beetles and all these different things. So drop shot something that's going to imitate that. Throw something on a float and fly with an up to a 9-foot leader with something like that suspended. Get your jerk baits out. So plastic jerk baits, get your 110, your Vision Mega Bass, go junior, go +1, you're gonna catch more fish, and you're gonna get more bites. So the jerk bait is a great lure this time of year for those suspended fish as well. And I like +1s, +2s at this time of year. You need to get it to go deeper, or get something that's soft plastic and you can really get in the middle of that water column and start jerking it around. And generally when you're fishing this time of year, those two techniques will get it done. But if they're not, and you've got fish holding on the bottom and you know they're there, just letting it sit, just dead sticking that bait in their face and letting the current move the bait, and seeing if you can get an inactive fish that's already fed to commit, because it's such an easy meal. You're letting it sit there, you're doing nothing, and that's exactly what it takes sometimes to get those bigger fish to bite. So another way is jig it, spoon it, start popping stuff up off the bottom and let it free fall. The better it flutters, or if it flutters or shimmies on the way down, that's going to get a whole lot more attention than something that doesn't. Now, a lot of people say, well, you could throw a spoon. It's like, yes. You can throw a spoon, but you can throw anything. It's just the concept, how does it flutter, how does it fall? So let me give you an example, like fluke would work fine, a spoon would work fine, a hair jig would work fine, a plastic worm. I've used a lizard and spooned up a lizard, like in the same concept, and caught fish. So it's like very effective, and it's very underutilized this time of year. Everybody thinks spoon fishing is a fall game. No, spoon fishing for sure this time of year gets bit, especially if you're in the channel. Find the main channel, the main gut of Folsom Lake. Find that, you know what I'm talking about. It's the gut. when the lake gets low, and you guys have seen it low, and you see those areas and the guts of those areas, that's your channel. That's where you're going to want to spoon. That's where you're going to want to jig and pop and all that stuff. So trying that with all different types of techniques and different rigs is going to be very effective. You're going to know right away. You're not going to have to sit there for a half an hour and cast in that spot. You're going to know within 5 to 10 minutes whether or not those fish are interested in that bait, because they react very quickly. So another thing is topwater, but everybody's fishing the same topwater. So what can you do to make your topwater stand out, right? And how can we upsize the fish? Because right now the fish really they downsize at this time of year. So how can you upsize fish? Wake baits, get yourself a wake bait. Get a large wake bait, 1/2 ounce, 1 ounce, 2 ounce, and you're looking for a wake bait where, trying to think of one of my favorites, by Mega Bass. It's it's not the prop darter, but it's a wake bait, guys. Get yourself a big wake bait. Get yourself a 5-gear ratio bait caster reel and slow wind that thing. And particularly you want to fish a wake bait in these low light conditions. So if you got some kind of a storm that pulls in, or a quick this, or you're fishing early in the morning or late at night, or in the lower light, morning sun coming out, evening sun going down, those types of situations for the wake bait are exceptional. You're going to get to be able to target big fish. You're going to catch big fish, and you're going to have to use a 5-gear ratio. I can't stress that enough. The slower you wake it, the better it's going to fish. So wake baits, jerk baits, crankbaits. I'm not huge on crankbaits at that lake, but if you're going to fish a crankbait at this time of year, get a DD22 Norman. Get get something deep. Get something that goes down 14, 15, 16 feet deep, and long line it. Get your rod, cast that bait out, let your boat drift, or use your trolling motor and get 200-300 feet of line across a slow tapering point, or across some kind of structure that you really enjoy. Maybe it's a flat that has a creek that feeds in, whatever it is. Maybe it's got grass lines that disappear, and so that crankbait will get caught in the grass, and then you'll pop it out, and you get a lot of reactions that way. But long lining your crankbait is going to get you so much more attention, because your crankbait is going to be in the strike zone, and you're going to get to make that bait work in the area you want to for a long period of time. Sometimes that cast can take 15-20 minutes of straight cranking, and you're going to be in that strike zone for the whole time. Whereas if you just take a standard cast and you're fishing your crankbait, you're only going to be in that sweet spot for about 30% of that cast. For 30% of that cast, so if that cast takes 10 minutes, 3 minutes of that cast, you were in the strike zone. The rest of that time is wasted. There's just not much of an opportunity there. So you're definitely not looking for fish on top of the water that much this time of the year. You're looking for suspended, subsurface at best, but suspended, and fish on the bottom. You're looking to downsize most of what you're doing, or upsize certain baits to get the attention from those larger fish in certain situations, like we talked about, low light, even like high wind. Let's say we get these crazy wind gusts, the water will start to, it'll start to thrash around, and as that water starts to thrash around, the light and the visibility of light that's able to penetrate through the water and get all the way down to the fish is going to be, let's just say it's displaced light. It's going to be a little bit, it's going to be not quite be, and that's all it takes, these little subtle things. So when you go, oh man, it's really windy out, I guarantee you the bite's great. I guarantee you the bite's great. If you can handle the wind, if you can use the wind as your friend and your ally, oh my God, these fish got no chance. Generally, that's the old thing that the old thing that nobody talks about, is these conditions that are relentless and dangerous, and extreme conditions, heat, cold, wet, rain, whatever it is, snow. They bring big fish, and they bring fish up in general. They make fish feed, they get fish active, it stirs up the water, it creates oxygen. When the wind thrashes the water around, there's oxygen being created. So it's like putting a gas mask on these fish. When it rains, the same concept. All this oxygen's being created every time raindrops hit the surface of the water. So these fish, they get a kick, they get going and they feed. Don't forget, guys, we got a full moon coming. Every full moon, around that full moon is big fish time. You got to focus on big baits. You got to focus on generally a lot of evening, late night fishing. Get out there with a big bait. I don't care what it is. If it's a big swim bait, a big rat, I don't care what it is. You got a good chance of catching a big fish. Like I said, we're talking about the window around the full moon. We're not talking about the rest of the month. We're talking about specific times, specific places. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to break down a few more things for summer pattern, and then we're going to move on and talk about some other times of the year. Another thing you really want to focus on is, a Ned rig, TRD, 2.8's the best. You can get the spots, the largies and the smallies on the same bait. So 2.8, stick with your standard colors, get a craw color, you'll be fine. And last but not least, do not forget about a jig and a pig. But the jig color is so important. So, we can talk staple colors, but at that lake, brown and purple, black and red, amber, brown, black, things of that nature, very productive. But there's a healthy population of crawfish in that lake. So if you guys are out there and you're like, find rock. Like I said, that mid section, that mid column of that lake, you're gonna notice lots of rock, lots of riprap, and that's where you got a healthy crawdad population. That's where they're really thick. So that's one of the reasons that area holds fish all year long, is you've got the crawfish. They ain't going nowhere. They're going to move up and down as the water goes up and down, but they're not going nowhere. They're in that rock. They're in the riprap. And the bait fish, just like the bass, they tend to have certain water temperatures they prefer, which is why they are where they are. So you guys might find a bunch of bluegill in the front area of the park, where everyone's launching, and that's because that's the warmest water temperature. So you're going to have the bluegill thrive in that. And then obviously when you go up all the way to where that water's coming in, but toward that deeper area, so where you've got your you've got depth, but you've got the cool water temperature. You got a couple features right there where the American's feeding in, and as soon as that water translates to deep water, that's where you got a lot of those king salmon holding. That's where you got a lot of those other fish, because they're cold-blooded, and so everything is going to relate. But the bass really, they congregate in the center, and I think this allows them to kind of just basically have access to everything. They go west, they're eating this. They go east, they're eating that. They go down or up, they're eating something different. But they've got a lot of options. So as the conditions change throughout the year, they're able to stay right there and feed and eat quite well. As far as the fall is concerned, let's talk about fall fishing. Let's talk about what is it, why is it that most people don't fish in the fall and they fish in the spring? Well, they're not spawning in the fall, okay? And they're not as vulnerable in the fall. They're not as predictable in the fall. You can't just walk out and say, oh, you know what? I bet you there's a fish right there, because that's just not the way it works. Most of the fish in the fall are going to be schooled up still. And these fish are, with the rare occasion of like an independent large fish, will still hang out by itself. But a lot of these fish are schooled up and they're moving. And that's why it's so difficult. You might come out one day and hit them and go, wow. Come out the next day and go, whoa, ain't nothing going on. And so that's just, they're not there. They're not there. So in the fall, you want to move a lot. You really want to just get that one fish. And once you get that one fish, start picking everything around it apart. And if it doesn't, pan out real quick, you got a solo fish, and you need to find this school. But then there's also the concept of, okay, I'm in the right spot, and the school will come to me. And that's one of the great things about fishing, is once you've learned all the different feeding areas of these fish, because they have patterns and habits like every creature, and they go where the food is. So if they've had success on a particular point, for example, or on an island, every time they go, there's food to eat, they're going to go. And they might not be there right now, but in a few hours or so, that school will pop up. It will come by. You don't know how long it'll stay. So you might bust them up, get on them, and then be like, damn, what happened? Well, the school left, and they went somewhere else. That's all. And you got to keep moving and keep going. And that's the thing about fall fishing, is you're constantly moving. Like, you're just go, 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 search, search, search. You bust them up, and you try to repeat that. It's just not always so easy until you find all the main feeding areas, all the areas that these fish are going to, and why they're going there, and what they're keying in on. Because that's a big thing, is in the fall, you've got a lot of dying bait fish. In the fall, you have low water conditions. A lot of these crawdads are more susceptible than they are any other time of year. In the fall time, you've got a major transition in the water temperatures as well. So, it's like a fish that might have been lethargic gets energy. A fish that had energy might get lethargic, and vice versa. So you've got a lot going in to play, but there's going to be a gorge window, and people don't talk about it, but a gorge window where these fish bust everything that's in their line of sight. It might only be a week or two, but it's a phenomenal week or two. And you can get away with so many different lures, but in the fall, you're not focusing on the bottom as much. You can, but to be honest, covering water is more important before you start slowing down. Just cover your water, find your fish, and just about everything that works in the spring, in the summer, and even in the winter will work in the fall. Fall is kind of a last ditch. It's their last attempt at eating as much as they can, like I said, in this window, fattening up, and then they just sit, and they do nothing through the winter for the most part. They don't move a lot. Why, right? So they're going to fatten up, and they're going to relax. And so if you get them while they're gorging, it's lots of fun. If you're basically past the turning point of the water temperatures, these fish just become so inactive. Now, when you get to the winter time, let's talk about the winter time a little bit. It's an inactive time period for bass fishing, right? Wrong. A lot of activity going on. It's not the same. You're not going to go out and get 10, 20 fish. You're going to go out and get one fish or two fish, if you're lucky. But those one or two fish are going to be substantial. They're going to be worthy of talking about. They're going to be something that you're going to put a badge on for. You're going to wear a badge of honor. These fish are not your everyday fish. So the class of fish in the winter goes up. So if you're looking for big fish and you're able to catch them, but you still haven't got that big one, get out there in the winter. It's not like there's a whole lot going on except football. Get out there and fish. Fish, fish, fish. And when you do hook up, you'll say, oh my God, that, 7-day stretch where it was brutal, that 8-day stretch, it was worth it, because this one day I came out and I got 2 bites. And it was the right 2 bites, the right fish. And the rest of the year, you just, getting on those same quality of fish. It's possible, but it's, very difficult. It's very difficult in the winter too, but I'm just trying to say that the biggest fish will come out to feed in the most incredibly brutal conditions. There's a reason they're big. There's a reason they got big. They didn't do it by doing everything that every other bass does. When a fish gets to a trophy size or a big fish size, they are independent and their behavior is independent. They're no longer a pack, a follower of the pack, if you will. They set their own rules. They place themselves in positions that make sense, where they don't have to move. The food will come to them. Sounds good to me. I mean, it sounds very wise. It's like a big fish generally has a winter area, a spring area, which doesn't travel that far for, and then goes right back to that winter area in the summer, and then kind of, might go to a couple areas that are, like I said, very close to that same area in the fall, and then go right back to that same area in the winter. They're not going all over the lake. They found one of the better places to be, where the food comes by. They don't need to basically do what all these other fish are doing. They're still learning. They're still trying to figure out, okay. And another thing is, it takes a large fish to be solo in deep water and not be afraid that another predator isn't going to come and try to. So that's the thing. And so wintertime, everything, I would say, just go slow. I know it sounds crazy, but light line's very important in the winter. Fluorocarbon is very important in the winter. Having the right equipment to feel the most subtle, sensitive bites is very important. Having an idea of what you want your bait to do, and not just going out there and fishing something like, say, a worm, and going out there and you toss it, you wait, you shake it, you drag it, you hop it, you skip it, you whatever. No, do one thing at a time. Be very consistent, very methodical, very patient, meticulous. One thing at a time. Cover the area, try it a few times, try something else. But very much do not be erratic. Do not, jig, pop, pause, shake, drag. No. One thing at a time. I guarantee you, any especially this time of year, these fish are, they want to look at it, and they're not, how do I put this? They're looking for an easy meal, but you got to convince them. You really got to convince them. And a lot of the time they tail grab, they nip, they don't really commit. So you have to do something when you're doing what you're doing. You have to do something that gets them to commit. To bite the bullet, to take the bullet, whatever, it's like these fish, they're fat, they're obese, they're butterballs, their bellies are huge, they're huge. Sometimes you get them in the winter and you're like, how could you even, like, where is the room for this bait? Where are you going to put the 12-inch worm when you are already about to pop? So how do you get a fish that's already fed, that's already obese, to take a bait? A larger bait, a lot of the time in the winter, is better. And how do you get them to do that when they're already full, they're already fed? Well, it's got to be easy. It's got to be in their direct line of sight, and it's got to look real. So it's, doing the first two things is one thing, and then getting it to look real. That really has everything to do with the way you're working it, the presenting it, the technique, how fast you're fishing it, the color of the bait, the size of the bait, very subtle things. But I will tell you guys that the next time the next time you guys are going out to Folsom Lake and you guys have any questions, anything I didn't cover, go ahead and message me. I'll try to get to you right away. Life is crazy for me, so I'm not like, this is more me trying to help you guys get on fish, put people on memories, and getting out there and having a good day, having fun. All that kind of stuff is what I'm about. And if my channel seems a little off, like inconsistent with content, it's bigger things going on. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead and message, click to subscribe and message me, and I'll get back to you, and we'll talk all about it, and I'll put you on every other thing. I don't want to go too far in the video because a lot of guys are just looking for that basic core information to get them on more fish. And the more I dive down the technicality of things, the more I start to maybe confuse some anglers, or maybe go to a place where you know, you got to go here to go there, and a lot of anglers, so let them go there, and later on maybe I can make a secondary video where I talk more advanced techniques and specific things that are more technical. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. The goal is get you on more fish and bigger fish, and get you outdoors, get you enjoying the outdoors more, get you outside more, get you off the phone, the internet, whatever the device is, and just go have fun. So stay tuned. We got more videos coming soon. Thanks for watching.